Mr. and Mrs. North and South American, all ships at sea, let's go to...
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephus and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Hey, it's us, those crazy guys from the Bitchspot Report podcast. This is episode 56, and we're going to spend the next 90-ish minutes or so talking about the religious and political news of the day, all from a distinctly and unapologetically conservative atheist perspective. Sit down, strap in, and away we go. Hey, we're actually recording our show this week. What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. I really love my computer. It's such a wonderful thing, and I really don't know what's going on. I mean, it could be that my mic had died. The Windows 8 decides to not let people record. I mean, apparently that's a problem. And now my Wi-Fi is doing weird things. So hopefully I'll be here for the whole show.
Yeah, I hope so too. You know, I told you not to get Windows 8. That's a problem.
Yeah, I know. I guess Windows 8 works better on tablets, not on laptops. Of course, Windows 8 was built for tablets, I guess. And I really haven't had problems until recently, so I think they rolled out a update, which I think killed everybody.
Yeah, I don't know, but I've heard nothing good about Windows 8. Everybody complains about how horrible it is, and they've already said they're doing Windows 9, which is going to take out all the stuff in Windows 8 that everybody hates. So basically, they're going back to Windows 7 and Windows 9.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just stay with Windows 7 because I know it works.
Yeah.
I don't trust anything Microsoft does anymore.
I knew better. I mean, over the years, from the DOS days, you know, it's like, this works, that doesn't work, you know, it's like, you know, sometimes I think I held off on Vista. I know I held off on Vista because I heard nothing good about that. I think that was it, because up to that point, I mean, 95 it was weird. I mean, because they made the big switch. 95, so they did the 98, whatever. But I guess you roll the dice, and hopefully they did something right, or they do something wrong, and this time I lost. Oh well.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned that I don't upgrade to the newest version of Windows until they put out at least the first fix pack, because they always have major problems. Every single one of them did. Vista did. I didn't upgrade from 98 or from, whatever I had before Vista. Don't remember anymore, actually. But, I upgraded to Vista, and then I stuck with Vista until 7 had been out for at least a year, and then I upgraded to that. I'm not going to go to 8 at all. I will be sticking with, it was XP that I was with before I did Vista. I'm not going to go to 8. I'll wait for at least a year until 9 is done before I upgrade to that, because they always have these massive problems. And I don't get the early adopters anymore. I mean, I used to be one, but Jesus Christ. This is a problem anymore.
Yeah. I kind of learned to expect that. I mean, there's always going to be glitches. I mean, no matter how many hours you spend going through your code, and you go through the betas and all that kind of stuff, there's always going to be some kind of goofy, there'd be the one person whose machine it doesn't like, and, I mean, cause I know guys that they just, early on, they did crazy things to these computers, and then they wonder why they don't work. It's like, dude, you're trying to, there's this one guy, he insisted that, he wanted to rename the drives. It was that, back in the DOS days where you had you had your floppies were your A and B drive, and C and D were usually your hard drives. Well, he always wanted to switch it so that the floppy was a C drive and the hard drive was an A drive. I don't know what the purpose of that was.
Yeah.
There was no purpose in doing that. And this guy was having so much problems. I go, well, screw this. I blew away this guy wrote all these batch files to do all these different little crazy things. I just blew it all away and say, here, you don't even need a floppy anymore to boot up anymore. Just turn the machine on. It gets to your C prompt. That's where you want to be. And, don't worry about it. Nothing's broken,
Yeah. I mean, I used to have problems way back when I was building my own computers because I was doing some weird stuff with it. But I kind of gave up with that, 10, 12 years ago when I just said, I can go out and I can buy from Dell or whoever and get exactly what I want. They'll build anything that I want and it's guaranteed to work right out of the box. Why am I wasting all my time going out and, trying to order this part and that part and all this other stuff? I might switch out my video card or I might add more hard drives or whatever, but I'm not going to go back and say, well, let's see, I've got to get this video card and I've got to get this and that and this motherboard and this fan and this CPU and, this memory. And it's like, no, screw it. Just put it together for me, send it to me and be done with it. I don't care.
Right. Especially nowadays. I mean, it used to be real easy. You get a motherboard, you get your CPU, you get your video card, all that. You could put it together. It was real easy. There was nothing really you had to do. And then now, it's like, I don't even know what the numbers mean anymore.
Yeah, I don't even keep up anymore. I don't care. But all right, drawer right here. Let's see. I know at the bottom, I have about 10 gigs of memory that I don't even think fits anything I have and 2 motherboards. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why? Doesn't make any sense. But, well, let's just hope the things continue to work and
I still got my old, Windows 7 laptop, so that'll be, coming with me. I'll check it out over the weekend, make sure. I'm kind of hoping it's just that the mic had went bad, cause the audio output was good. It was just the audio input, through the mic was bad. So I don't know, maybe the mic went bad for all I know. So
yeah, I don't know.
So who knows?
Who knows?
So I'll get that solved and should be back in business next week.
Well, that's good. All right. Well, this should be a real easy show to do because it's the show we were going to do last week. So, we don't really have to change any of our show notes. We just had to rename the show number. There was one thing that I wanted to talk about before we really got into the show, because this is just something that came up today and it was really interesting. Over on a Google Plus atheism group earlier today, a guy named Pastor Jeremy Steele came up and he pointed out that Ken Ham lost the debate with Bill Nye because he refused to really engage him. And he said Christians really ought to be more open to discussing religion with atheists fairly and evenly. And while on the surface that sounds like a really, really good thing, and I actually wrote a blog post on it and it's going to be up tomorrow, so it'll be up before this show airs so people can see what I say, after they listen to this, and I'll do a link to it. But I wanted to get your take on this. Is it really reasonable to think that theists can discuss their religion with atheists or not? As far as I'm concerned, it's like saying, people who believe in the Loch Ness Monster should be able to talk to scientists about the Loch Ness Monster. No, they can't. They have no basis upon which to have that kind of a discussion.
Yeah, I can't see any merit. It doesn't add to anything. You're not going to convince the atheists, what they believe, and the atheists are not going to convince the theists what they believe. I mean, it's not going to happen.
But it's not belief though. That's the thing. Yeah. All right. The atheist or the scientist or however you want to do it can bring all kinds of evidence to the table. They can sit down and say, okay, we've got all of these different sciences that we can point to that show that there was no worldwide flood, that there was no 10,000 year creation, that there was none of this stuff. What the fuck do the creationists or the Christians have to bring to the table? Nothing. There's no common ground that they can meet on. There's nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. There's nothing there. There's nothing that they can say, nothing we can say that changes anything. We know, the scientific evidence points to this. Whatever they're trying to do, whatever you're trying to do, it's not going to make any difference. I mean, certainly I can kind of, empathize with the idea that, we shouldn't be fighting. I mean, really, it should be civil discussions, but when you got the Ken Hams and the Ray Comforts who, no, this is the way it is, you're burning in hell for believing what you believe because we're right and you're wrong. And, that, is really, it doesn't, again, there's just nothing that can be said. Nothing will change. Nothing can change through any type of discussions. And, we're right. they're wrong. I mean, I don't want to be a dick about it, but, it's, that's the fact. I mean, we've got evidence for, what we say. The only evidence they have is their book that they're pointing to.
And we can prove that their book is wrong.
And we can prove their book is wrong.
And the sad part is that if the theists would come out and say, here is objective, demonstrable evidence for the actual existence of our God in reality, atheists would change their mind. We would all acknowledge that these gods exist if they could prove it. Yet, you look at Ken Ham, what will it take to prove to Ken Ham that he's wrong? Nothing. There's no conceivable proof. Nothing will ever make him change his mind.
Right.
That's the problem. And that's the problem with all of these theists who sit down and say, oh, well, we wish we could have these discussions with atheists. Great. I want you to have these discussions. But keep in mind, you're bringing nothing to the table. You got nothing to present. What discussion are you having? What discussion is David Icke having about reptilian aliens? Where's your evidence? You have nothing to present.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I do want to tell people, please do not Google Jeremy Steele. There's a porn actor by that name as well, and you're going to get the wrong guy. So I'm going to put all this in the show notes so you can link to the proper stuff, unless you really want to go see this porn actor, but it's not the same guy. So fair warning, we're trying to head off some problems at the pass.
Yes. Yeah. Don't need to be bringing that up at work.
Yeah. We're not safe for work most of the time, but that's really not safe for work. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to some news from last week. And now the news. Recently, in a court case in California, Dariano versus Morgan Hill Unified School District upheld a high school's decision to forbid American students from wearing or displaying objects depicting the American flag in their high school on Cinco de Mayo for fear that racial tensions might break out. Now, wait a minute. These are American kids proud of their own flag and nation being stopped from displaying that pride for fear that kids who shouldn't even be in this country anyway and who openly venerate another country might beat them up. What the fuck is wrong with this country?
That is one of the things that really bother me. This is America. I mean, this is America. This is our country. We're proud of it. I mean, they're here. I mean, if they're here legally and all that, I don't want to go into open that can of worms, but if they're here, they're in America. Hey, why is it a big deal? Why is it a big deal to anybody if I want to wear a American flag? I mean, wear an American flag pin, if I want to wear a American flag t-shirt, whatever, on a kind of a fake holiday, actually, Cinco de Mayo. I mean, I don't think they celebrate Cinco de Mayo in Mexico the way we celebrate it here in the United States. It's kind of like St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
We get drunk and put green on, get drunk. The Irish, it's a church day, it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
So Cinco de Mayo. I mean, that's just an excuse for Americans to get drunk.
Yeah.
So why is it a big deal wearing whatever you're wearing?
Well, because a lot of this is because Mexican gangs, largely made up of illegal aliens, would rather go to school here, yet wish this was Mexico. So they go around and they beat up on Americans who are putting down their stupid little day. This is violence. And these are threats of racial violence, or any violence really. Anybody making those threats ought to be in jail. That includes all these Mexican fucks. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to say anything against people of Mexican heritage who want to be here, who want to be American citizens, who want to embrace the American way of life and the American culture. All right. But I'm willing to bet you that these schools are not telling kids who are wearing the Mexican flag that they can't wear it on the 4th of July or whatever American holidays. Do you think that's happening?
No.
And it's bullshit. And if anything's going to be illegal in this country, it ought to be flying the flag of another country on American soil. We should be telling these Mexican fucks that, dude, we are not going to run your flag up the flagpole. You want to celebrate Mexican independence? I'm cool. Fucking go south of the border to do it. Do it in your own home. But this is an American school where you're getting a free American education. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So sick of this crap. And then they'll all sit around and call us racists.
Right.
Because they're going, these are people going, we're going to kick your ass, we're going to knife you, and we're going to shoot you because you're insulting Mexico. well, fuck Mexico. If Mexico was fucking good, you'd still be there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see you going, hey, Mexico's a great place. You're not in Mexico, dumbass.
Yeah. That whole mentality, you know, it's great to be, you know, have some sort of, you know, you got your roots. You know, I mean, when I look at my roots, I mean, I'm half French, quarter German, and quarter Welsh. You know, it's like, okay, that's where I came from. You know, so, you know, that's cool. I mean, but it doesn't drive my life. That's the thing. You know, it's like, okay, that's where I came from. But I'm here. I'm an American. I drive American cars. I try to buy American compute, whatever the thing. I'm your typical American. And even that's a big whoop. You know, it's like, I'm not that hardcore patriot thing. I mean, I'm just glad to be here. I've got a country where I can do my podcasts. I can pretty much do what I want as long as I'm not interfering with someone else. I can speak my mind and not worry about the secret police taking me to, someplace, but.
Well, you're not sure about that anymore.
Yeah, that's a little dicey, but you know, hey, but it's, in a way, yeah, I mean, I'm free to do what I want. I mean, I should be able to speak out, and then that's what I'm doing. I mean, I'm free to speak out on what I believe in, and we're in this country where we have the rights, the privileges to do this, and to, you know, this idea of muzzling Americans for speaking their minds, not applying the same to other groups. That is so wrong, and it's almost like reverse racism there.
Yeah, but racism is all fine and good as long as it's against whites. Come on, we know that.
Right.
Yeah, it just pisses me off to see the courts and the schools all sticking up for all this multicultural, multi-crap. And,
well, it's, you know, and it's even that when now you've got, and the school thing is what's really, I think, the key here, because, you know, the schools they turned into pussies. That's the only way to describe it. You know, a kid comes in to school with a squirt gun. He's kicked out because it's a weapon. You know, you hear these things. A kid got expelled for having a nail clippers, and they get expelled for these little things that, you know, back in my day, you know, half the cars in the parking lot at my high school had, you know, a hunting rifle or probably maybe a handgun. Mostly it's hunting rifles that they hung in their back windows. That was the thing to do. Half of us walked around with buck knives in school. You do that today, you get arrested and you get thrown into jail if you're a kid going into those schools. You know, and the zero tolerance crap that's has gotten into the schools where you can't do anything. You can't joke about being, you know, a bomb or whatever. You know, it's like, could very well be the parents who are afraid of little Johnny getting shot or whatever at school. I'm sorry, this shit happens, and it's not as bad as people think. It's just that when you plaster it across the news, you know, the news wires, you see it on TV, you think it's happening all over the country. No, you know, it's one or two a year maybe, and it's actually pretty low considering, you know, just the raw numbers.
There's thousands and thousands of schools out there, and you're getting very, very few shootings. And, you know, we're going to talk about this more next week, I know, but, you know, there are things we can do to stop it, but nobody's really willing to actually do it. They just want to cover up the symptoms and pat people on the head and be stupid, I guess.
Right. So that's why we get stuff like this, because that sounds like what was the impetus behind this lawsuit is that the school was afraid that, you know, whatever it was, this wearing these American flags on Cinco de Mayo is going to cause problems. Honestly, it probably wouldn't have, nothing would have happened.
No, it's not the kids wearing the American flags that are causing the problems. It's the Mexican gangs that are causing the problems, beating up the kids wearing the shirts. So instead of going after the gangs and putting these people in jail or tossing their fuck asses across the border like we should, they're punishing the Americans because apparently Americans are now pussies.
Yeah. Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, is it any wonder we get pissed off on this show?
Yeah.
And it's sad because other people aren't equally as pissed. This should make people mad. You know, this should make people go down to their school board meetings and scream. But nobody does because it's all a bunch of liberal bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't. I've come to the conclusion I just don't understand people anymore.
any sense of logic and reason's gone out the window.
Yep.
That's about the only thing. I mean, I can go on forever about, we don't want to deal with the problem. We just want to patch up the symptoms.
The Simpsons. Yeah.
The Simpsons, the symptoms, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to find that in the next story too. So why don't you do that?
Yeah. Now this is from March 10th. Bill shields school religious displays from suits. This is from the Westport News, Nashville, Tennessee. The State House is scheduled to take up legislation Monday evening that would protect schools from lawsuits for allowing traditional winter celebrations or religious displays. The Senate version of the bill was unanimously approved 30-0 last month. The legislation says schools can display scenes or symbols associated with such celebrations on school property if the display includes more than one religion or one religion and at least one secular scene or symbol. Messages that encourage adherence to a particular religious belief are prohibited. And the proposal also allows students and school staff to offer traditional greetings regarding celebrations such as Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays. And the sponsors say some groups have threatened to sue over such displays and greetings, and the legislation would protect the schools. So here we go. It doesn't sound too bad, but it's still protecting a religious symbols, or at least allowing religious symbols in public property or in public land, tax-based properties. And this shouldn't happen. They're trying to keep alive the religious stuff. I mean, I'm kind of cool with it, but you know what? It's just when it comes down to it, religion out. You can't support any type of religion. Because even in this bill, they're talking about a religious symbol plus a secular, or they're trying, you have to have at least two. Okay, well, you're still putting, at least one of them is going to be a religious symbol, maybe two, because whatever. And you can easily, keep out the non-religious. And, I mean, this is just another one of those where they're trying to candy coat what they're trying to do or trying to appease whatever. And, it's just still the same shit, putting a religious symbol up in a school, in a public place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would think that they would have learned their lesson by now. I mean, there's been a bunch of cities out there who have had to change their laws to allow any religion or any non-religion to put up symbols during the holidays. And they've all learned without exception that it's simply easier to deny all of them than to allow all of them. Because once you allow any group to put it up, you have to allow every group to put them up. And you run out of space pretty damn quick there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it seems to me. It's just either all or none. And I would think even like with, in Washington, the Capitol, I mean, you could probably run out of space pretty quick if every religion was allowed to hang some symbol, give them 10 foot by 10 foot. I mean, you could cover that whole building with some type of symbols. So I mean, I think any type of symbols, any type of, religious or non-religious stuff, let's just put it on your churches, put it on your synagogues, put it on your whatevers, and, leave it there. Not on the public buildings, not on any tax-based, property.
Yeah, well, it's really clear they're trying to do an end run around federal law. And they'd have to write this thing really, really, really carefully. And I can see that they tried, but let's be honest, they're doing it to get Christianity into the schools. And they'll go, well, we're going to allow Christianity and we're going to take a menorah and we're going to put a menorah way down here in the corner really small so that we have two symbols. And then we're just not going to allow anything else. And that's going to go right out the window right away. And these schools are going to get sued and, more taxpayer money wasted on religion being tried to get stuffed into these schools. And they're going to lose. And then they're going to go, well, it's those damn atheists. No, it's you people fucking up again. And then 5 years from now, they'll try it again because they just keep trying the same crap over and over and over again.
Over and over again. Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say on that's it. I'm wondering if Texas is still doing that. I mean, I would bet you, this was, where was that? Tennessee. So you're probably talking, then Mississippi's going to be next, Louisiana, it'll be this every year, every month, there's going to be another one something's going to come up, same thing, another law. It's like, I mean, don't they read the judgments, when they do get shot down?
That assumes they can read.
That's, yeah. I mean, I think it would be a prerequisite. We'll keep seeing it until someone says, this ain't working,
But the problem is, it'll never happen. And I don't know this for sure. I have no idea. I'm just throwing this out there. But I'm willing to bet you that behind all of these different similar laws that are popping up all the time, I'm willing to bet you there's some kind of a big religious organization behind it pushing privately.
Oh, yeah.
So that, there's some kind of a giant Christian mega church or, whatever, the Catholic, I don't want to say the Catholics because they're not really into that kind of shit, but, some kind of an evangelical group that's going around to these school boards going, hey, you should do this if you're a real Christian.
Well, the Discovery Institute does it with, intelligent design. So I would think there was Fisher's Family
Research Council?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised they're not doing that, or if it's an organization like that. I mean, it doesn't even sound like a religious, but it's gotta be. And they come in, they'll give you sample legislation, here's what you should present and how to present it and so on.
Yeah, and when it goes down in flames, these people have no responsibility whatsoever. They don't lose any money. They just pick up and move to another state and go, hey, we got this idea. Why don't you do it?
Yeah. And that's probably it. And they go legislator to legislator to state house to state house, and if they get some traction, hey, they'll help out until it looks like it's dead, and then they skedaddle to the next legislator, state house.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that's the kind of thing that's going on too. That's kind of sad, but how much tax money gets wasted in this country every year by all this religious bullshit that they ought to know will never fly?
I would love to see those numbers. That's gotta be staggering.
We could feed every homeless person in this country if we just stop with this bullshit and just spend the money on social programs.
Yeah. Tax these guys. Joel Osteen, I seen a meme or whatever up on there about, he's got, his house is like $5 million. He pays no taxes on it. It's like, fuck.
And then he was whining about losing $600,000 from whoever stole from his collection plate. It's like, dude, if you made $600,000 at one of your sermons, fuck you. Just fuck you. I don't want to hear it. And where's all that money go? Right in his pocket.
Yep.
Hate the religious. So sick of the religious.
It's not so much the religious, but it's those that have taken such advantage of everybody. I mean,
but the religious they let them do it.
Yeah. But then you got these guys that are like the Joel Osteens, what's that lady I hate? Oh God. She's on TV. It's kind of a mix of, I don't know what it is, but it's like these people show up, but they're not even interested in listening to her. They're just there because but she's there. What's her name? And she's one of these that she's made fortunes off of these people. They come in, they throw their $20, $30, and I was watching it, and there was these people, they were knitting. They weren't even paying attention to what's going up on the stage and what she was saying. They were sitting there doing their knitting. They were reading their books. They're not paying attention to what she's saying. They're just there because, I don't know, they think her voice is healing them or whatever it is.
It's a social thing to do.
Apparently, yeah. And I mean, it's all crooked. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that there's that shade of gray. You got those down at the bottom who are probably 100,000 a year, 200,000 a year, running their little, their ministry, where you got these guys that are, they're raking in $1.6 million every week, to buy and run, they run amusement parks. They got the mega churches, they got the TV networks, it's like, that's the obscene part. I mean, that's when it gets so obscene where these guys are raking in the $1 million a week from these people, and they're only there because somehow it makes them happy. You know, it's like, and of course they're not going to complain. I mean, I wouldn't complain if people started sending me $50 a week to do this show. I mean, it's like, oh, cool. I'll keep doing this, just keep sending me that money, it's like, but that's not, I don't like that. I don't want to take advantage of people. And that's what these people do.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as the money keeps flowing, they'll just keep spewing their bullshit and they don't care what anybody says. And people are suckers. I want to do something to change humanity so that 90% of people aren't stupid, but I'm not sure exactly what we can do.
I'd like to say something like education stuff, but that doesn't seem to work. I don't know.
Well, it's because they don't want us to educate anybody. They're allowing the religious morons to opt their kids out of learning about reality. Anytime anybody says anything against their religious beliefs, they shit their pants. I mean, it's like, take the new Cosmos. Religious people have been shitting their pants over Cosmos because Cosmos isn't catering to their stupid religious bullshit. It's like, guys, grow up and get over yourselves. You believe stupid things. Maybe you ought to get a good dose of reality and realize that, well, the stupid things that you believe ought to go away. But they're not interested in that. They just want to feel good and be happy and, keep shoveling the Bronze Age mythology in one ear and have it fall out the other because there's nothing in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's perpetuating the myth. Keep the myth going, and I don't know. I don't have much faith. I know there's people who have suddenly realized, wait a minute, all this has been bullshit, and I don't know. It
happens, just not nearly as much as it should.
Right.
And speaking of bullshit, let's do another story.
Okay.
We have a theme this week, I guess.
1 week from today, Pope Francis will mark the anniversary of his election. A survey out today of American Catholics finds he is enormously popular. 68% say he represents a change for the better. Even so, Elaine Quijano tells us the Pope is not having the impact that you might expect.
Pope Francis has more than 3.5 million Twitter followers and, in true celebrity fashion, a fan magazine that monitors his every move. But the new poll of American Catholics shows the Pope's influence may be limited. The number of Americans who identify themselves as Catholic is unchanged from a year ago, 22%. And of those Catholics, 40% say they attend Mass once a week, also the same as last year. Father Jim Martin is editor-at-large of the Catholic magazine America.
It's one thing to be popular.
Yeah.
It's another to be effective in terms of bringing people into the pews.
I think things may lag. I mean, he's been Pope for a year, and I think, people's faith lives, if you've been away from the church for 30 or 40 years, it might take more than a year to come back.
The survey did find that about a quarter of Catholics say their faith has deepened in the last year. Brian Stevens is one of them.
I heard Pope Francis in his message, and I couldn't stay away.
Stevens stopped attending church regularly more than 6 years ago. He says Francis's tone is welcoming.
He's made me feel like there's a place for me in the church. He's made me feel like I'm wanted in the church, and not only wanted but needed to help bring about a better world.
But, Scott, just 54% of U.S. Catholics approve of how Pope Francis has handled the clergy sex abuse crisis.
Elaine, thank you.
Lots of American Christians claim that Pope Francis has changed the world and is making Catholicism better, but they still ignore the vast majority of things that come out of the Vatican like they always have. More Americans than ever have stopped going to Mass, stopped going to confession, and stopped identifying as Catholic. In fact, American Catholics are predicting that the Church is going to change major doctrines like birth control and gay marriage, something that I guess Francis has alluded to, but which the Vatican still openly and vocally opposes. So, who's right? And will American Catholics ever take the Vatican seriously again? And the answer is no. We've talked about Francis since he got the big hat. Yeah. And he talks a good game, but he hasn't done a goddamn thing since he's been in office.
Yeah, the whole idea, to do anything. Nothing's happened. He's talked the talk, but he hasn't walked the walk. I think we speculated quite a bit. Why can't he do this? Why can't he say, hey, we're good with same-sex marriages. We're good with abortions, or even if it was limited, but it hasn't happened. And I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be status quo. The Pope can say whatever he wants, but, until, I don't know, when all the hats get together and, decide, unless they have I don't know how they do it in the Catholic Church. Papal bull. I don't know how they would change stuff, but somehow they have to sit down and say, this is going to be our doctrine. We're going to revise our doctrine. Yeah, we'll allow this. We will allow this, whatever. We'll do this in moderation, whatever the main beefs. But see, again, the Americans, I think, are a little bit arrogant, thinking that this guy in Italy, in his little castle in Italy, is going to change his mind. It's like, no, I don't even think the Pope even listens to America, to be perfectly honest. He's more interested in what's going on in Central and South America. That's where the big money's coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, 70% of American Catholics identified priest sex abuse as the number one problem Francis has to address. And today, 54% say he's making strides. How? What's he actually done? He talks about it, but he hasn't actually done anything. He hasn't opened Vatican records. He hasn't issued any directives to turn over all the records regarding pedophile priests to the authorities. What exactly has he done to actually solve the problem? He's done shit. He just talks about things.
He's done nothing. Unless someone can prove that he did something other than sit there on his pulpit and, what he says. It's like he's like a politician. He'll tell you what you want to hear. It's just as long as you keep following him, that's all that matters. But if he's done anything, I would like to know, because there is nothing. He could write up a papal bull and order every church to hand out all the records of any alleged real pedophile priests, any all records, and tell them to give it to the authorities. He could do that with one piece of paper. He could. But he won't. He won't.
Not a chance.
Yeah, but he could do that if, he has that power to do that. And I know he won't do it, because, that's pretty much it for Catholicism in America and the costs of that. But you know what? He could do that. If he wants to say you can have abortions, in certain cases, because I doubt very much they'll ever say abortions for all. Abortions are cool. He can write up a bull and say, hey, this is our new rules. You can have an abortion in case of rape and incest and such and such. Okay. He could do that. He could, and the cardinals can't do anything about it. His minions, whatever is Grimer worm tongue that hangs about behind him, can't do anything about it. He could change everything just right from a piece of paper.
Yeah, but he'd be dead in 30 seconds. You know it. That paper would never get to public view. He'd get a knife in the back.
Probably. Yeah.
There's way too much in the Catholic Church that, they've got a lot to protect, a lot of power and a lot of money, and they're not going to allow him to do anything. This whole, he's the mouthpiece for God is just bullshit. He's just a figurehead, and we all know it.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that all the American Catholics are going, wow, Pope Francis is so social media friendly. What the fuck does he do? What? He has a Twitter account that he doesn't personally use. Where is he social media friendly? Seriously. You can't talk to the guy. The guy holed up in the Vatican. He doesn't have his own Facebook page. He doesn't sit down and tweet what music he's listening to or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, maybe he can get a hold of a couple boys. I'm sure he can get them real easy.
Yeah, I'm sure he does all the time.
These kids know the Twitter and the Facebook and all that, and, have them, maintain his, image, whatever.
No, they can live tweet his, molestation.
Yeah. That's probably why they won't let him do it. I don't know.
He's not doing a thing for anybody. He's the same Pope as the last Pope. He's just got a different image. He's still the same dick. He's an asshole, just like the last couple popes.
Yeah.
I will not respect any pope until they actually come out and make changes to the way Catholics do business. Not going to happen. Ever. Ever.
Because I'm going to say, well, how many popes have there been since the pedophile break? 4 or 5 at least?
Well, I mean, that goes back into the 50s, so I think you're talking Pius. I don't know. So maybe, I don't count.
Well, 7 or 8, let's say, and, none of them done anything. I mean, none of them, had lift a finger to do anything. And especially today, where it is out in the open, there has been, it's documented, they've been through the courts already on some of this stuff. I mean, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg here in the States. So I'm sure there's other dioceses that are hiding these guys, and nothing has happened, and it's the same status quo, it's the same, keep it going. These are the rules. You won't see it out of this guy, unless somehow, he figures out a way to break the chain, but until he does that, nothing's happening.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to do anything. I don't think whoever comes after him is ever going to do anything. I don't think in the next 100 years we're going to see a pope that's ever going to do anything. They've got a vested interest in keeping the status quo.
Yeah.
So he's going to talk a good game, and then they're going to keep buggering little boys. Yeah. Because that's what Catholics do.
Catholic priests, not Catholics.
All right. Well, I don't know. You could have Catholics doing the same thing. We don't know.
Well, that's true.
I mean, I'm not bagging on Catholics necessarily, but, when you have such a systemic, endemic problem and nobody does anything about it, but everybody keeps gushing over how wonderful Francis is, you people are just idiots. You people need to open your eyes and look at what's really going on and see that he's just talking. He's not acting. And unless he acts, he might as well just be, screwing some kids under his robes and keeping his mouth shut.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and finish up your last one?
Yes. The Free Thinker, the voice of atheism since 1881. Evangelical Christians want access to more corpses to hone their raising the dead skills. I love this. I thought there was laws against what these guys are wanting to do. Defiling corpses? I don't know what they do to raise the dead. Apparently they need practice because they haven't been able to do it yet. They claim to have raised, I believe there's some numbers like, 16 or 17 from the dead, but it's all anecdotal. No one's ever been able to find these people that they allegedly raised from the dead. And I guess, again, it's that same attitude, anyone can raise the dead as long as you believe. If you don't believe, then you're not fully, vested or whatever it is to raise the dead. So you need to keep practicing. So they want access to morgues and cemeteries and stuff like that to practice raising the dead.
Well, let us know when you actually manage to demonstrably raise one person from the dead, please. Until then, screw you.
Picture in this article, and listeners can look at this. I mean, it look like the Backstreet Boys. It's like, I hate to use the ad hominem attack, but here's these guys, they're sitting there, they look like a boy band, but they raise the dead, people from the dead. And,
no, they don't. They claim to, they don't actually do it.
Right. But they're, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. And these guys, you gotta give them credit. They believe what they believe, and they're convinced that they can raise people from the dead, and they just need the practice. And, again.
Well, seriously, they claim to have gone to this place called Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. Seriously? How is this any better than Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft?
That they're opposed to because it's, witchcraft and, oh, yeah.
Yeah, this whole thing, it's just, alright, maybe they really want access to dead people because they're really into, doing some pretty freaky shit. No, we were raising her from the dead. Why are my pants down? Well, it's part of the ritual. Yeah.
Yep. Kind of like that guy in China. to get rid of the demons, that woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You have to first do that to the corpse before, gotta get the demons out, you know?
Sure.
And then you pray and the body of Christ compels you, wave your arm, and then he raises from the dead. That must be it. That must be it.
The penis of priest compels you.
Yes.
Well, I mean, my question is, if God can't cure people who are still alive, why the hell are we supposed to think that he's going to raise people who are dead?
I thought that was the whole idea, calling them home. God's calling them home. Why do you want to raise? Again, it seems to go opposite of, people like to think, when a person dies, God's calling them home. Why do you want to take them from God? I mean, this sounds almost like opposite of what would be a sensible religious person.
Sensible and religious are...
I know oxymoron. I know it's an oxymoron, but that's what I was going for. These guys aren't sensible. It's like, dudes, I don't know what the mechanism that they're tapping into to bring this person back to life. I mean, it seems like totally opposite of anything that would be religious, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're just, they're doing whatever they're doing, and the funniest thing is, and this goes back to stuff we talked about earlier, was these people refuse to provide any case studies. They don't want to prove that they've ever raised anybody. They don't want to put their body or their dead raising team to any kind of scientific study. They're just making a bunch of stupid claims and then wondering why nobody's taking them seriously. And we talked about this earlier where, guys, you got nothing to bring to the table. And not only do they have nothing to bring to the table, they claim they do and then they hide it. And they wonder why nobody takes them seriously. Guys, this is why religion is such shit. 'Cause you're stupid.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
I mean, that's why people like us will call them out on the stupidity. I mean, it makes no sense. Nothing in this, what this bunch is doing, even if I put on my religion hat and look at this, it's like, it's like you seem to be going opposite of what religion is. You're dealing with spirits, you're dealing with whatever. I don't know how they're bringing these people back to life. What's the mechanism they think is happening? Because it seems like God called them home. So, why are you trying to deny God the soul?
Yeah, fuck you, God. We want him back.
Right. It's like, are they trying to perform some type of magic, which is, of course, very, kind of a no-no amongst the evangelicals, because they'll call out the satanic types, who think they can raise from the dead or do stuff with the dead. So it's like, everything just seems so opposite, but from the rational side, these guys are just delusional. They're convinced that they think they've done it, and then they don't want to prove it. They don't, or like they think I don't have to prove it to.
Well, they know they can't prove it. That's the thing.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, they can't prove it. They have no proof, nothing, and
but they want access to bodies.
Yeah, which is creepy.
For their little necrophilia thing that's going on, clearly.
I'm gonna make sure my driver's license says, don't let these people raise me from the dead. Keep them away.
Do not resurrect order, yes.
Yes. Do not I'm trying to say it. Do not.
It's part of my new medical directive. Do not resurrect.
Yep. I got to get it on my. And you know what? I'm actually seriously making sure I got to let my family know this. Yeah, no resurrections, especially the Backstreet Boys here, because I
seriously have to put that on my. I'm going to have to change my medical directive now. I wonder if I can actually do that. I bet I can. I think I'm going to have to do that. Put that on there officially. That's just too classic. Keep these people away from my ass.
Yes.
So to speak.
Figuratively and literally.
Yes. That's just too sad to be true, but it is, unfortunately. And that's more stupid religious bullshit and why atheists don't fall for it. But let's do some main event.
Let's do the main event.
All right.
This is the main event.
In the third and final of our series, this week we're going to look at the platform for the Libertarian Party and see where we disagree. Now, sure, we could go and look at the Green Party and the Communists and all the rest, but we're already hitting the bottom of the barrel with the group that has never even hit the mythical 5% of the electorate, nor even come close. They've been around for more than 40 years and have failed miserably in every single national election. Why do we bother? Because they're vocal and energetic, and frankly, at least from my perspective, they're more than a little nutty. So let's take a look at what the fuck is wrong with the Libertarians.
Yes.
All right, well, I got 3. I don't know if you have anything.
Just a general overall kind of, a general impression.
Okay, well, go for it.
Okay, 'cause, I have this thing about government, how things should work. I mean, and I think throughout my tenure here, I am kind of, optimistic. I mean, definitely a lot more optimistic than you are. And I know that the system can work. Okay. But the only way it can work is if we get good people in government to do the job that we send them to do. All I see within the Libertarian Party is to cut people out, cut down the government, eliminate the various departments. They want to get rid of they want to cut down the intrusion. And I think I could almost empathize that the government does tend to, their nose is in everything. It'd be nice if they weren't as into our lives, but, to eliminate regulations, to get rid of whole, government departments. I mean, I think I've heard some of them talk about like the Department of Education, the Department of Commerce, the, Department of Energy. They want these to go away. They want, property rights, liberalized or whatever whatever you want to call it. And I see a lot of problems with that because while from studying regulation, I know it doesn't really work because it's always too late. When something goes wrong, then we decide to regulate it. I mean, we don't regulate it before it happens. We regulate it after. But to not regulate it at all, let them run crazy. I mean, I see a lot more problems than anything good coming out of it. They talk about letting I hear a lot of people talk about let the industry police itself, or let the market will police itself. It'll correct itself. If you get rid of, pricing, get rid of the antitrust laws, you get rid of all this stuff that's regulating business, the market will manage itself. No, it doesn't. It
worked so well in the housing bubble, didn't it?
Yeah, the housing bubble, and this seems to be the libertarian ideal, is to, get rid of the regulations, or, either lightly regulate it or don't regulate it. Get rid of the departments of, whatever, these various departments that play a very important role in supposedly not perfect, but they do try to regulate things and try to identify problems and work with industry. They want to take away OSHA. They want to get rid of EPA. All this kind of stuff. Let the people make those decisions. When we had that, it was literally a disaster, and it's really, it's the thoughts of what will happen if you let anybody just run free, run free. As long as you don't interfere with your neighbor, everything's good. I don't see that having anything positive coming out of that. I just see a disasters like polluted rivers. You'll get these, dumping. You'll always get the ones that they'll break every rule that we would if you get rid of it. So I'm more into right-sized government, not small government. I want a government that's the right size for what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, my thing with them and government, and I've talked about this before, so I don't want to go into it too much, is they treat the government like it's some kind of an alien entity that's been forced on all of us that we have to go out and slay and downsize to virtually nothing. And you were talking about the Department of Education before. What they want to do is they want to get rid of the Department of Education and then move all of the running of education to the individual states. Well, how is that any better than keeping it at the federal size? Because the state governments, well, what happens when they do things you don't like? Do you want to move it to a city? Move it to a town? Move it to a school? Where do you actually want to set this regulation? Do you get to personally decide what you want to teach and not teach? Where does it end? Because they haven't actually proven that one works better than the other. And especially in education, we talk about this all the time, that, you're going to end up with Texas producing stupid fucking kids because they won't teach reality because they keep religion in the mix. So the Deep South is going to be a bunch of ignorant, stupid redneck hicks. You're going to get California. You're going to get a lot of the northern states that are going to be intelligent because they're not religious. And then you're going to get the southern states, which are all stupid and they don't learn about reality. And this is supposed to be a good thing that we're all supposed to be proud of? What the fuck?
Exactly.
And then we get to things, you mentioned the EPA, but what about the FDA? Who is going to keep the drugs safe? Who is going to track the food, keep the food safe? If there's no federal oversight, then anybody can just be out there selling whatever snake oil they want. They can be out there selling food that's not healthy, and there's nobody to say, hey, this is the regulation that you've got to follow.
Exactly. If you're talking about the state, because the problems we're seeing is not coming from the federal government. It's coming from the individual school boards that are making decisions like, bringing intelligent design. Dover and Kritzmiller. That wasn't something that came out of a federal program or an office. That came from the grassroots. So when you got, even in general, if you brought it down to the state or you brought it down to a county or a school district, you're going to see such a disconnected system with the schools, with interstate commerce. A company like GM, they're all over the world, but they got plants across the United States. If one state, if they were able to convince the one state to, hey, let us pour gasoline into the river, and the state says, yeah, sure, no problem, dump all the gasoline, you can even dump diesel if you want. And next thing you know, they're moving all their people down, whatever. There will be no fairness. And you're going to get states that are going to be will happily let you do stuff. There'll be states, I'm trying to think, I want to say like Northern California. I imagine those counties up there, they don't want you to do anything, it's like, you can't do anything. You can't dam a river. You can't, you can't throw a candy wrapper out of your window that you'll get arrested and thrown into prison, whatever, cause you'll get all that different mindsets and different beliefs on how to run things. We're probably thinking of it on the worst case because that's what it would be. Nothing will get done. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe like California, the North will split off and,
God, I hope so. I wish.
Yeah. From my experiences being in different towns, over the years being in different towns, every town, every state has their issues. I remember California with the water. Iowa was, hog farming. Here in Michigan, it's Detroit and just Detroit. Detroit is a big problem here in Michigan. Then you go to Illinois, the big problem seems, it's hard to tell what the big problem is other than our governors. They're criminals. So every place is different. You're going to see this totally disconnected country. If it wasn't for the feds keeping things kind of on an even keel, if this country did turn libertarian all of a sudden, I think we'd be in a world of hurt. Because I would imagine with the libertarian mindset, it would allow religion to seep back into where it was.
Of course it would.
Yeah. Because there'd be no controls over it. The courts couldn't touch them.
Yep. And that's really one of the biggest problems. I can't stand their mindset. There are some things in them that they're reasonably conservative in some areas and they're just completely wingnut off their rocker in others. And it's unfortunately the wingnut crazies of the Libertarian Party that tend to be the most vocal. So, those are the ones who are out there trying to push Ron Paul and Rand Paul and all these other crazy morons who nobody should ever support.
Ron Paul, Rand Paul, I don't know how can anybody with at least 2 brain cells that may be it. Kentucky, maybe there's not too many brain cells to rub together down there. But even Ron Paul, he's a little, he bothers me quite a bit.
Yeah, but that's really just evidence for what we've been talking about, because Ron Paul is a fundamentalist, creationist, wingnut asshole. You know, I mean, he's exactly the kind of person that you would see getting in, where he's out there, you know, praying to God and all this other bullshit, and that's not the kind of thing we need in this country. I'm sorry. Well, luckily, he's sort of retired-ish. Yeah. So, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I want to just get through my 3 points. The first one we've talked about before, which is natural law and natural rights. I've done this in the past. I did a Bitchspot quickie on it a while back, and I'll link to that in the show notes. But let's be really honest. There's no reason to think that natural law is at all credible, rational, or demonstrable. It's the same kind of thinking we see coming from theists who claim that rights come from God and they don't have to prove it. It means they just get to declare whatever the fuck rights they think they want without having to demonstrate that any of it's actually true. You know, faith, even political faith, is just not impressive as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. You know, my question is, how do they actually justify which rights are natural and which are not? How do they do this objectively? I mean, they trot out David Hume and John Locke and Thomas Paine, and they just say, well, these people wrote these books about their opinions about this shit. Okay, great. They've got their opinions. We're not talking about opinions. We're talking about reality. How do you actually demonstrate that X, Y, or Z is actually a real right? Where the fuck does this come from? They can't explain any of it. You know, they routinely confuse rights and abilities. Just because you have an ability to do a thing, they think that gives you a right to do a thing. Well, I have an ability to shoot somebody in the face. That doesn't give me a right to do it. But they just kind of pick and choose and cherry pick and go, hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to pretend that this is a natural right, and therefore everybody has it. But we know that this whole idea just completely falls apart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just reading the Federalist Papers, I mean, you kind of get that impression that between Hamilton, Hamilton's writings, I don't see any basis. I mean, this seems to be like, a offshoot of taking British common law and the rights under the Magna Carta, and these are natural rights, or these are inalienable rights, all that kind of stuff. But then, for one thing, I don't think anybody really understands what our founding fathers were even thinking. There's those that do, but then there's those who think they do, and they're the ones who are going to say, well, yeah, because Hamilton said this, and Jefferson said this, and Paine said that, and could put name and say this goes with this. But really, do you even understand how they got to that point? How do they make that decision? It's somewhat vague. I mean, that's my opinion. And that's coming out of the Federalist Papers. That seems to be where they were arguing what is inalienable rights, natural law, all that kind of stuff. And, well, of course, trying to put together a constitution. That was the end goal, was this is how we want to put our constitution together.
Yeah, and it's one thing to sit around and say, well, we support the philosophy of these people, or we follow this philosophy, and to say, well, this philosophy is now our fucking Bible. No, it's not. Come on. All right, so number 2, drug legalization. I am absolutely positively not in favor of drug legalization. I don't see where it does society any good. There are no positive benefits from legalizing it, and with that, if you can't produce a reason why society should support it other than I want to, why do it? Don't go back to claiming people have rights that you can't demonstrate. People don't just have a right to do whatever they want to do. Catholic priests apparently want to molest children, but that doesn't give them a license to do it. Muslim jihadists apparently want to whack off heads from infidels, but that doesn't give them a right to proceed. So I don't get the whole drug legalization thing. And now that we're starting to see some states legalizing pot, we're starting to see problems.
There seems to be some problems. I'm very curious. I think it's Colorado that's having the real problems with crime going up, isn't it?
There's Washington State is having problems. Colorado is having problems. Colorado, they're now reporting an alarming number of students caught bringing pot to school, and in huge quantities. They're not bringing a joint. They're bringing a pound of pot, Yeah. But, oh no, it's legal now. In Washington State, people who have been ticketed for driving under the influence of marijuana are up 9% in the first 6 months alone. And for people who are being pulled over and warned, traffic stops are up 300%, which is exactly what everybody said was going to happen. And, oh no, legalize pot. Do your thing. Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Pot, I'm kind of cool with. It's the harder stuff that we gotta make sure that never gets even considered to be legalized. If the libertarians are saying legalize it all.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem.
I have issues with, the harder stuff, the cocaine, the heroin. I mean, these drugs do absolutely no good.
Well, what good does pot do? Pot does nothing for anybody. It makes you feel good. Well, I'm sorry, dude, but if you've got to inject, ingest, snort, or smoke some foreign substance to feel good about yourself, you need some fucking professional help.
Yeah. It's like any type of intoxicant. I mean, alcohol's legal. You mess up on the street, you're going to be held to task. If you're caught smoking a joint, you've tested hot, that you're high on marijuana, I would say hit them the same as you hit drunk drivers. I mean, I'm totally cool with that. If they test whatever the blood level, whatever limits that they want to set, you could lose your license, do all that kind of stuff. You got to take responsibility for your actions. When I have a few drinks, I'm very careful how I drink. I kind of keep doing the math, 1 beer, 1 hour type, this thing. So if I have 3 beers, I gotta wait 3 hours. Okay, well, a beer an hour, whatever. I got this formula I use, and so far it's worked pretty good. I guess I haven't been pulled over or anything like that. But it's, to keep my blood alcohol level low. So if I do get pulled over, if anything, I'll blow, I should only blow a 0.02, maybe a 0.03. I don't want to get into the 0.05. The Illinois will drag you out of 0.05 and they'll take your license at 0.08.
California's a lot lower than that.
Yeah. I'll imagine. Yeah, every state's different, but, that's kind of that's what it is now in Illinois. So I'm very careful about how I drink, when I drink, stuff like that. And, if I were to take up marijuana, I would be very careful about, do I want to be operating any machinery? Do I want to be on the road with, getting high, that type of thing? Take responsibility for that.
And I'm all about responsibility, and supposedly the libertarians are too. The only problem is, sometimes your responsibility is not, well, what should I do now that I've done this? It's, well, should I do this at all in the first place? And I think a lot of them just don't even bother thinking about that. It's just, hey, this makes me feel good. I want to do it, so I'm going to go off and do it. And then maybe I'll start considering responsibility after I've already done it. Why don't you just start saying, well, is doing this at all a good idea? Should this be something that I'm doing at all? Maybe you should just decide, no, it's just fucking stupid.
I would have no issue if there was laws, drunk driving under the influence of marijuana or cannabis, whatever you want to call it, and have the same penalties for what you would give to a drunk driver.
Oh, but we can't have any restrictions. Come on. Restrictions are evil.
Yeah.
See, I don't have to worry about it because I don't drink. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in more than 25 years. I just don't care. Yeah. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I never have and I never will. And that's the end of it. But, there's all kinds of people out there who are just going, oh yeah, I want to go out on the weekends and get wasted. And it's like, you're a fucking moron. What's wrong with you? Seriously, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah, that's the wrong way to do it. I'm a smoker. I smoke cigarettes. I do like a cigar. I'm more of a beer person. I'm not a hard alcohol type. I'm very careful about when I drink. I don't have to be careful with cigarettes, but even then,
Oh, you do if you don't want lung cancer.
Right. But, taking responsibility for what I'm doing. And, if I'm plastered to the wind, and I have never gotten that bad in, 10 years or so. Late high school, early college. Yeah, I used to get pretty messed up, but not anymore because I don't like throwing up. But just the idea that, there's consequences, between the hangover, the possibility of spending a night in jail, losing your license. The one thing about losing your license in Illinois, it'd be the worst thing. The crazy thing is if you're arrested outside the state in Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, you get a DUI in those states, Illinois still takes your license away, and you gotta, not only it's almost like double jeopardy, but it's not really. You're getting busted in Indiana for drunk driving. You're getting busted for, improper usage of a vehicle, and you could lose your license over that, and it has pretty much the same penalty as what you're getting so you get a double whammy if you're caught outside of the state drunk. And, it's not, and Illinois, you're going to spend about $2,000 to get a resolution on your case. You might end up spending $3,000 to get your license back. And of course, if anything, you're going to be stuck, at least 6 months without a driver's license. So if you're caught driving after that, you're back in jail. It's a mess, and it never goes away. It actually, I think there's people who are still fighting the last bits of their DUIs 10 years after the fact.
I'm fine with that.
It sucks. That's why I'm saying take responsibility. Know what you're getting into. If you're going to smoke, you're going to smoke grass, you're impaired. You're going to be impaired. Be very careful what you're doing out there. And I would have no problem if Illinois made it legal. I want the same laws that apply to alcohol to apply to marijuana.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, in every state we've seen that it's become legal, it's had massive, massive problems.
Yeah.
There is not one success story out there, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing stuff like in the dispensaries there in California are in trouble. It's like, actually I think it's not so much that the people these dispensaries are getting robbed,
it's not only necessarily that. I mean, there's some of that, but that's true of any business. But at one point in time, and I don't know how the law stands right now because it's different in different cities, but there was a point where it was only for medical marijuana. So you had to have a prescription from your doctor to go into these dispensaries to get something. And they all just said, fuck it. And they just said, we're just going to sell to anybody who comes in, prescription or not. And cities started to shut them down, and they started to yell and scream and whine. And of course the libertarians came in and went, well, you can't shut them down. Everybody has this right to have, to get high. It's like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, the law was that you had to have a prescription to even walk into the building, right? And, and you weren't following it, so fuck you. That's the way it should be. And, I mean, if the libertarians, this is their tenant, their plank in their platform, more power to them, but it's like, don't pull this shit that dispensaries were operating illegally. That should, it goes back to, like what we're talking about with, our first story, these Mexicans that are here in this country illegally who can run roughshod across the country with no, repercussions. It's like, wait a minute, that's wrong. And, here you got the libertarians saying, these dispensaries are operating illegal, but it's like you're violating their rights or what it is. I mean, that's just as bad. It's like, no, dispensaries were operating illegally. If you're not following the rules, you're going to pay a penalty.
Yep. And you should. And it's funny that you brought up that first story, because another plank of the libertarian platform that we're not talking about is their support for open and unrestricted border access so that anybody can come here if they want to without actually having to be a citizen or actually having to follow the fucking laws.
If the law's on the books, call your congressman. Say, hey, I don't like this law. Can we do something or form a group, form a grassroots, whatever it takes, because people have done it. They've got together and gotten laws changed. It's hard. It takes work, but that you have to get up off your chair, turn off the TV, and get it done.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think in a lot of these states where it's become legal, I'm giving it maybe a decade before they're illegal again. I think there's just too many damn problems. And then they'll all be screaming up a fucking storm, but.
Right.
Well, anyway, let's do my last one, which is unrestricted gun ownership. Now, in general, I have no problem with gun ownership. Seriously, I'm a former gun owner, don't have a problem with it. But these people who think that anybody ought to be able to carry bazookas, drive tanks, and have nukes strapped to their back, that there should be absolutely no restrictions whatsoever on whatever kind of armament that Joe Blow Q citizen can own. And a lot of this is we're afraid the government's going to come and get us kind of shit. Well, dude, if the government's coming to get you, I don't care what arms you've got, you're dead. Fuck you. So let's not play that game. But this whole thing is just really kind of ridiculous. I mean, the Second Amendment, no matter how wrongly the libertarians read it, it just does not give anybody the express right to own anything in the world that you want. They don't read it in context. They don't understand how it was written and why it was written the way it was written. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court, as we've talked about before, they backed a fallacious horse when they realized that ruling for the actual text and meaning of the Second Amendment could never really be defensible in the U.S. So they basically said, hey, we understand that there's no way we can never go back to the reading of the Second Amendment the way it was written and the way it was intended. So we're going to have to fudge things because there's no way. So, I mean, it's more legislating from the bench, but god damn, the libertarians pissed me off with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool to have a tank. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, I'm a war nut, the historical. I would love to have, maybe some type of, like a howitzer or something like that,
I have a friend who has a howitzer. You can own a howitzer. You have to fill the barrel with concrete. Then it's perfectly legal to own. You can own a tank if you want, just can't be armed.
Right. I mean, just to make the point. I mean, some of the stuff is cool, but you know what? As far as this idea of a government, I'm actually kind of good with having citizens prepared to take arms against an oppressive government, if we ever had that.
But that's the problem, is it ain't gonna make a difference. Once you're talking about nukes and a government that's willing to use them, and having,
I'm thinking
aircraft, I mean, if you have a government that's willing to use that kind of weaponry against its own citizens, it don't make a difference what the fuck you got. You're dead.
I'm just saying that, having a population that's familiar with guns, on that front, I'm just trying to make a point that I'm kind of good with an armed populace. And you are right. The U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard all have.
National Guard, local police, everybody, they outweigh you in weaponry no matter what you're carrying around.
Right.
Doesn't matter. That's something the founding fathers never would have understood. They never would have foreseen it, but that's the reality of the world that we live in.
Right. But, I have no problem with gun ownership. I don't have a problem with Americans getting a hold of a nuke. I mean, if you could, I don't think you can even get your hands on one. If you could, what good would it do, type of thing. But
hey, if you're a terrorist, you'd be perfectly happy to use it.
Yeah, if you're a terrorist. But
there's a lot of American terrorists out there. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the possibility of getting a hold of one, getting into the country is almost impossible. And unless you do have you got like a Russia or a Ukraine who probably has got some stuff floating around in the black market.
Yeah, but again, going back to the libertarian mindset, they want everyone to be able to legally own all these things. Therefore, you don't have to smuggle anything in out of the country. You have to just go down to the corner store and buy it. That's what they really want people to be able to do.
I don't know, but I'm kind of good with it, but you know what? There's nothing in the Constitution saying you can't regulate them, you can't limit. I mean, the biggest problem with guns is that a lot of times, and this is going back in history, a lot of times the criminals were better armed than the police because the police had no budgets and it didn't matter. Just, when you could buy a Thompson submachine gun from a hardware store, you go down and you can either buy or steal a Ford V8, you're unstoppable. Your local police, if you had one, they had their 38s, your 45s, tops. They were stuck on 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engine cars. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde, he had a Browning automatic rifle. That was his go-to weapon. I mean, it's like a medium machine gun. You could put a lot of lead out. These cops that were coming up against them were coming up with them with shotguns and handguns. There was nothing to stop them. So we put regulations. You got to be such and such to get. I don't know what the rules are now. I know they've changed. They've outlawed the Browning. I think now you can get a Thompson. And I don't know if it's state. Again, state. All the different rules. I don't own a gun. I don't don't think I'll ever will own a gun. I don't know what all the rules are, but having a gun is a responsibility. That's what I'm trying to get to is, if you want to own a howitzer fully working and you can afford the ammunition, hey, knock yourself out.
Yeah, right until you get mad at your neighbor and blow up their house.
Yeah. And then you get the SWAT team coming down on your head, so it's, there's some realities there. And, I'll admit to that. It's just that I think, unrestricted, it's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen. It makes no sense. Even going as far as getting a hold of a nuke or a F-16 or something, getting a hold of a Russian nuclear submarine. Apparently you can buy those.
Oh yeah, you can go buy those without ammo and changed over to an oil-driven engine. They take out the nuclear engines.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can absolutely do that. Russia has been selling off their subs for a long time.
Yeah. Granted, an LST, landing ship tank from World War II, just getting the paperwork to get your hands on one of them. It was there's a LST, I forget the number on it, where they had bought it from the Greek Navy. But there was all this paperwork that had to happen before you could get a hold of one of them because it's ex-military. Apparently it was converted to a roll-on, roll-off ship, where you drive trucks on there loaded. It was a Greek Navy, transport ship for, cargo. But just to get it back here to the States, it's kept in, where is it? I think it's in New Orleans. They've restored it. They do a tour on the Mississippi River of this thing. But just getting a hold of that, just the paperwork. An LST is not something, it's not heavy duty. It's not like having a nuke or an F-16. It's at the most, I think it had like 4 machine gun bays on it. It's a big ugly ship. Military. Having one of those isn't as bad but it does take quite a bit to get a hold of them. And I don't have an issue with that. You're dealing with responsibility. If you want this stuff, you got to show that you can use it responsibly. I don't see much. You're not going to convince me you're going to use a nuke responsibly.
Right. We have to have rational gun ownership laws. I'm completely in favor of gun registration and keeping guns out of the hands of crazy people. But I don't see how libertarians can control the insane from having guns if they're going to argue that all people have a natural right to own firearms. How did crazy people or felons or whatever you want to use, how did they lose their natural rights to own these firearms? So we might as well be giving the crazy people an MC, give them a machine gun and let them go to town because, hey, it's their right, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If the libertarians get their way and if they were to get in overall, we would never know who's crazy because they would want to eliminate, that would be one of the things they'll eliminate is the mental health system in this country. Anything government sponsored healthcare. I see that going away. So now nobody's going to get, or be able to afford, any type of mental health, any type of intervention on that front. So you wouldn't know who's crazy and you start handing out guns to everybody. If that ever happened, I will be buying a gun just to keep the crazies out of my front yard. Because that's what it's going to be. They'll be up and down the street.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to take exception with the liberal side because I don't want anybody to think I'm, anti-gun or anything like that. That their idea of banning guns would make violence vanish. We know that's not the case. The nations of the world with the highest incidence of guns tend to have very, very low murder rates, like Norway. It's got the highest incidence of gun ownership in Europe, but it has the lowest murder rate in Europe. You look at Russia, which has very little gun ownership, and it has 20 times the murder rate of Norway and 4 times the murder rate of the United States. So the idea that we're just going to get rid of guns and suddenly all this violence is going to go away, that's ridiculous as well. We have to have some kind of a middle ground where, we have intelligent laws that allow intelligent, rational people to responsibly own guns. And we also know, I think we should have, shell casings on record for every damn gun that's sold. So we know if you go out and start shooting up the town, we know which gun this thing came from. But that's an anti-libertarian thing because they don't want any controls.
Yeah. And that just spells disaster. I don't see anything good. I like their spirit where, small government, the rights to, type of thing. But they're going too far. I mean, they're just going too far, and I have no problem getting or allowing guns or drugs or whatever into people who can use them responsibly. But we won't be able to tell who, because, again, supposedly, if you're a mental case, you're not supposed to get a gun. We can barely handle that. You take away a mental health industry altogether, or at least not fund it through the government. You'll never know who's crazy.
Well, we don't know now. That's the problem, is under the liberal system, the mental health industry can't tell us who's crazy.
Right.
It's all patient confidentiality.
Right. So, but with it totally going away under their thing, it's going to be insane. And I don't think these people understand, and they may argue slippery slope, making a slippery slope argument. No, I think in this case, especially when it comes to politics, I think slippery slope is a valid argument in the political sense, because we've seen it. Alcohol. At one time, I remember, you could be 18, 17 to buy alcohol. You can, DUI was like, they just took the beer out of your car and dumped it out and told you to go on your way, type of thing. And then with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they started implementing in each step. Oh, you can't, now you gotta, we want, point, I think, I forget what exact order, but they said, we want like a 0.8 blood alcohol. We want a stiffer penalties. We want, and they kept going. Same with cigarettes. First you couldn't smoke just in restaurants. Then they took away from the airplanes. Then they took it, now you can't smoke, like in Illinois, you can't smoke anywhere in a public building. To me, that's political. That's gonna happen. You move one step further, because I'm hearing there's people who want to stop people from smoking in their own house, in their own property. Fuck you. That's not going to happen. And if the libertarians start gaining momentum,
which isn't going to happen,
which hasn't happened, and it's probably not going to happen. But if they keep pushing forward their agenda, I see it being a total disaster. I mean, at least with the Republicans and the Democrats. There seems to be some kind of, there seems to be some kind of moderation there. But with the libertarians, then you start getting into even some of the other parties. I see the gloves off, and we're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why I really didn't want to go farther with other parties, because most other parties are just either Democrats or Republicans with one thing taken to massive extremes. Right. That's kind of like, you got the communists, you got the Green Party, you got, the Religious Constitution Party and all this other stuff, where they just take one little aspect and just blow it up into something ridiculous. And so they're not really worth talking about, because they're just insane people who are really part of this other party.
Right.
And we've already covered that, so. But I just thought we should touch on the libertarians, and neither one of us likes them much. And, go on and do something else next week.
Definitely. Hopefully.
All right.
I'm hoping to get Brandy on.
Well, that'd be great. I'm counting on that.
Yeah.
I haven't slaughtered anybody lately. No, I'm not scaring you away, Brandy. Don't worry. All right. Well, let's go ahead and close up for the week. Please do not exit the tram until it has come to a complete stop. That was our show. We hope you enjoyed it. Please visit our website for complete show notes. Check us out on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and anywhere else you can think of. We'll be back in another week with another dose of conservative atheist goodness. Until then, take care and think. Reason. Use your brain. It inoculates you against irrational insanity. See y'all then.
Good night.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephus and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/TheBspotReport. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, Ideas and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.